Winter Roses, Summer by fairytalelovr. Chapter 12. The Blessed Island. Late in the next morning, John walked down to the crypts, crossing the busy courtyard. Carriages were being packed, carts were being loaded, and stable boys brought saddles and horses up from the stables. They were supposed to be leaving now, but no one could find Ned, so John, Rob, and Theon had been dispatched in different directions to find him.
"That's Aunt Lyanna, isn't it?"
he asked quietly, approaching his father, who stood by the statue of the only woman buried there. Ned took a deep breath.
"This is my sister Lyanna, yes,"
he said, unable to lie. "Not that openly, not like this, and especially not here." John saw the small urn next to the statue and frowned.
"Why are you putting Winter's ashes here? Why did you even have her cremated?" "They belong together," Ned answered. "You see, your grandfather gave Winter to Lyanna, still a foal, on her 10th name day. Lyanna was already a great rider, and she was amazed with the gift. She raised Winter, the jewel of her eyes, her greatest pride. Other people called Lyanna a centaur, she rode so well. I found Winter when I found Lyanna, and I rode her back north, back home. Now they're both gone, but they belonged together in life, so they shall be together in death."
John nodded, unsure of what to say, seeing his father in a strange mood. All he knew from his aunt came from Old Nan, Uncle Benjen, and stories people told. Ned never spoke about his sister. John knew that Ned was the one who found her after the rebellion, after he'd gone to war to save his sister. He had found her only to have her die in his arms. None of the children ever asked about her.
"She would have loved you dearly,"
Ned whispered.
"I'm sure I would have loved her too,"
John said. Ned grimaced and got uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation.
"We should go,"
he said, turning to leave.
"Robert is not known for his patience."
He walked down the tunnel, disappearing up the stairs. John took a last look at the statue. It seemed as if the woman was offering him the winter rose she had in her hand. John touched the smooth stone, feeling a shiver go up his arm and down his spine. He clutched the hand, something indescribable taking over his heart.
"Goodbye,"
he whispered, unsure where the urging came from. Then he let it go and followed his father. The caravan followed the King's Road to the White Knife, and then rode on the riverbank down to the White Harbour. The Queen was riding a huge wheelhouse drawn by 40 horses, and they were burdened with another carriage for Daenerys, Sansa, and Arya, as well as several carts taking luggage from the royals and the court, and the move of House Stark and House Starling, which meant they were not the fastest of travellers. Ned had decided that Sansa, Arya, and Bran would travel with him to King's Landing, while Robb would rule as Lord of Winterfell in his stead and take care of Rickon, whom he deemed too young to come to the capital. The boy had not been happy, especially because Robb, Theon, and Sir Roderick, all of whom were to remain in Winterfell, were joining the caravan to the Blessed Island to see Jon and Dany's new home, and, according to Jon, make sure he could stand the Lannisters for another month and a half. So the youngest Stark had been left in Winterfell alone with Lady Winifred for the time being. Jon was anxiously riding by the window of Dany's carriage every hour or so to check if she was all right and not feeling any pain. She always smiled softly and reassured him, knowing his concern was genuine and loving him for it. But during their 3rd night on the road, after their tent was set up and they were away from southern ears, Isla angrily told him to mind his own business because she knew hers very well, and if she said the babe was fine, then it was. The next day Jon decreed Isla was joining the girls in their carriage, and went ahead racing with Robb. Everyone was happier for it. Due to their speed, it took them almost a whole moon to get to White Harbour, slowly advancing over the northern green plains, now blooming with life in the height of summer heat, the snow long melted. Their slow pace made the king each day more cross. He often complained about
The monstrosity!
That slowed them down. Queen Cersei was equally as upset. The day the wheelhouse lost an axle, the king yelled and cursed, threatening to take a smaller company ahead and
leave the queen to her bloody luxury.
Finally, with both the wheelhouse and Cersei's arrogant annoyance intact, they arrived in White Harbour. They would spend the night in Newcastle and break their journey, so Lord Manderley had a great reception awaiting them, a feast with singers and dancers. The Queen was less than appeased, but everyone else's spirits seemed lifted with the rest on the road.
If he is too fat for his horse, Theon said during the party, a few horns of ale in, do you think he'll sink the ship tomorrow?
Robb choked on his ale, but Jon threw him a censoring look.
You shouldn't speak ill of your host.
I'm not speaking ill, Theon said, laughing. It's a genuine concern. Come on, look at the man.
To be safe, Robb added, recovering, it might be a good idea to have him on the ship with the least weight.
Jon chuckled, surrendering to the joke. Or in a ship by himself. A horn of ale later, Jon found Sam sitting all by himself with a mournful face.
You, my friend, look like a child whose favourite toy just broke.
Oh! Sam exclaimed, surprised by the company. Oh, it's nothing. I'm being silly. Jon merely lifted an eyebrow.
Sam, we've known each other long enough. Come on, what is it?
You'll think it's ridiculous.
If it upsets you so much, I highly doubt it.
It's just... I find I'll miss the Winterfell library. Jon chuckled. See, you are laughing.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I don't think it's ridiculous, no. I've asked Uncle Benjen if there have been any books capable of being read left in the castle, and he said there were very few salvageable by the time he got there.
Well, it has been 4 centuries since the castle has last been inhabited.
Yes, I know. He said there was a closed trunk that mostly survived, though it's written in another language. Most likely Valyrian.
Oh, I always wanted to learn, but...
He trailed off, the shadow of his father hovering over yet another topic. Yes, so is Dany, Jon said, choosing to ignore the implication lest he decide to ride all the way to Hornhill and call Lord Tarly foul names. Your first job will be to find a tutor, maybe someone from the Free Cities. My father loaned me a few books, and Lord Tyrion has bothered others he will kindly ask us to return to Winterfell, so you can read or copy them if you wish. But I promise to set aside a sum to get books. Slowly, we might have something worthy of being called a library.
You don't have to do this for me, Jon, Sam said, and although Jon knew his friend spoke truly, his smile belied his words. I know how expensive books can be.
Books are important, Sam. I'll never love them as much as you and Lord Tyrion do, and I'll certainly never read half as much as you, but I won't deny how important they are.
Oh, I wish I knew a spell to copy them faster, Sam said, and Jon frowned, making him laugh. I always wished I could be a wizard.
Jon laughed as well. All right. Well then, let me know when you do invent a clever way to copy several books at once.
Dany was sitting with Sansa, Arya, Jane Poole, Beth Castle, and 2 other southern girls, watching as a woman danced daringly with a snake when Joffrey decided it would be a good idea to get closer. Orys, the guard Jon had appointed to shadow Dany, stepped forward, standing right beside his lady.
Lady Sansa, the prince said, I would ask for the honour of a dance.
You must forgive me, your grace, Sansa replied, suddenly scared, but I am afraid I find myself rather overtired from the journey.
Joffrey was not pleased. You dare refuse to dance with your prince?
Sansa shrunk back, startled. And Daenerys wanted nothing more than to put the blonde boy in his place, but knew it wouldn't be wise. Lady Sansa means no offence, your grace, she managed to say. She twisted her ankle as we left the carriage earlier today. She does not feel well enough to dance.
Joffrey clenched his jaw, visibly outraged. Daenerys doubted he had ever been refused before, and the experience clearly didn't agree with him. Is something the matter, Lady Starling? Asked Great Jon Umber, suddenly stepping up next to Orys, menacingly placing his hand on the pommel of his sword in a very obvious manner.
Nothing you need to concern yourself with, my lord, Daenerys said, growing anxious as she saw other northern lords look their way. Lord Glover and his brother, Lord Robert, were already coming over. Well, then, Joffrey finally said in a tight voice, registering the incoming company, if Lord and Lady Starling are capable of managing anything worthy of hosting the royal family, I suppose we might have something remotely deserving of being called a feast once we arrive at the dirt-packed ruin you call an island. I shall accept with grace and duty, conceding a dance with you then, Lady Sansa. With that he twirled on his heels and quickly left, the hound hot on his heels, bristling at the look of so many hostile northerners. The Glovers joined the table in time to hear Joffrey's offence, and stared darkly at the prince's back. Neither were as furious as Lord Umber, who wore his heart on his sleeve. Thank you for your support, my lord, Daenerys said, placing a hand on Great John's arm, lest he finish unsheathing his sword. He clenched his fists, but let go of the pommel.
Let them say what they will about dragons, my lady, but you were raised a northern woman, and married a son of the greatest northern house. You are one of us, and the North remembers. The little prince will live to regret his offences to you and your lord husband. Let him grow up to wear the crown, and he'll see how much the North will love him. Heed your words, my lord, Lord Glover cautioned. Too many ears about. Let them hear. Might teach them not to raise a hand against their host's good daughter while a feast is expecting them.
The girls were looking curiously now, as only Sansa knew the details of Joffrey's assault. They only knew whispers. All of them deemed too young and unmarried by their parents to hear such news. Shouldn't we resume the merriment? Dany asked. My lords, I thank you for your support, but I doubt the prince would dare go against his royal father, and I have nothing if not love for our king, who has been ever so kind to me and my lord husband. This is a feast. Let us eat, drink, and dance.
Wise words, Lady Starling, Lord Glover said. It shall be done as you say.
The three men left. Trying to disperse the awkwardness, Daenerys called for more lemon cakes and wine, bidding the dancer to resume her number. It was barely past dawn when Jon rushed Daenerys out from their guest chambers, allowing her to grab a heel of bread. Isla is packing our breakfast, and dragging her all the way down to the harbour. I know we are leaving today, Jon, she complained. Why must we come down here before anyone else?
Because I wanted to give you your name day present, and I don't want an audience for it.
My name day isn't for another 2 days yet, she said, frowning.
I know, but it can't wait, and it'll lose all its meaning.
She was even more confused, but Jon only smiled and urged her to continue on their way down. Down in the harbour, Jon led them to the dock, where they could see a single longship made of lightly coloured wood, flying a blue sail with the sigil of House Starling. We have ships, Dany said with a smile.
A ship, Jon said. We'll have more now that we are not spending so much on rebuilding the castle, and are making some trade agreements with our saucy merchants. But this is our first. The Lady Daenerys. Happy name day.
She gasped, tears rushing into her eyes. You're naming it after me, she said, and Jon only smiled. Daenerys looked around, seeing there were too many people around. Can we go aboard?
Of course, Jon said, taking her hand. We do have the main cabin, he added with a sly smile.
Good, Dany answered. How long until the others join us?
At least 2 hours, more likely more. Why? What is my lady wife thinking?
I am thinking that we have had to keep it quiet for a month now in that dreadful tent. I would like to scream again.
Oh, I would love that, Jon said, leading them below decks.
But if we have the main cabin...
The king has a few of the royal ships come north from King's Landing. He can sail in his own damned main cabin.
Dany chuckled, amused. And finally, Jon bolted the door behind them and pulled her into a deep kiss.
I think our child makes your blood boil, he mumbled.
We are the blood of the dragon.
Hot.
Jon walked into the cabin carrying a basket. Daenerys was sitting at the dressing table, and Arya was brushing her hair. Where were you? Dany asked. It's almost time for supper.
We're not going to supper tonight. We're dining alone here, Jon said, raising a basket, making her smile softly. You thought I'd forget?
We're in the middle of the bay, and we can act too loving in front of the Southerners. I already got my present. I don't think we would.
No one but the family even remembers it's your name day. Robb is spreading the unfortunate news that I am indisposed, and you are, of course, not going anywhere without my presence.
Daenerys smiled, dismissing Doreah. You, my lord, spoil me too much.
I should hope so, my lady, because a princess is entitled to much more than a simple lord like me can offer.
Gods help me when we have a daughter, Dany said, sitting on his lap and enjoying immensely the way his arms wrapped around her waist. You'll spend half our income in toys and dolls, and everything else you might desire.
When we have a daughter, be it this time or the next, I will most certainly spoil her rotten.
She chuckled. Then you can start by feeding us. I'm ravenous. What are we feasting?
Smoked salmon. Lord Manderley boasted loudly about his smokehouse.
I heard. And what we had last night was delicious.
We will be living on an island. Saltwater fish will be very easy to have.
Good, Dany said, already reaching for a piece of the fish. Our child likes this meal. It's moving again.
When did Isla say I could feel it from the outside?
Not for another moon, at least, Dany replied, placing his hand where she felt the movement anyway.
Aye, nothing yet, he said, unhappy. Well, I'll have to doubly spoil you then, to bribe the babe into moving for me.
Gods, we'll end up with a dancing juggler! Jon laughed, kissing her cheek before starting to eat himself. They sailed north, then east, past the Three Sisters, a tiny bit north again, and then the island came into view. The castle could be seen from a great distance, black against the clear, blue sky. The stones had been carved out of volcanic rock the isle was made of. It stood in the very middle of the island, on top of a hill that raised it 100 feet from the rest of the land. There were numerous towers, from the outer archery towers, only as tall as the battlements, to the tallest one that reached 500 feet from the sea. Behind it, the volcano could be seen, tall and majestically imposing, snow eternally covering its peak.
Quite the sight,
Jon said, an arm around Dany's shoulders. She smiled, burrowing deeper into his embrace. It was a familiarity denied in front of the southern eyes, but they were miraculously alone with sailors on deck. It's our home, she said, smiling. I love it already. It's very imposing.
Jon chuckled. Of course you'd think that with your Valyrian blood. Though the castle has stood unconquered for millennia, so I suppose it must be imposing.
Remind me to thank your father once again. And not in front of the Lannisters. Jon agreed, indulgently, and watched as their home came ever nearer. The ships got as close as they could before dropping anchor, and Benjen was waiting for them at the pier, when the boats moored.
Lady Starling, he said, helping Daenerys up from the pier. Lord Starling, he nodded at Jon. Welcome home.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Oh, I like that one. They're travelling, Jon's being protective, but Isla has to put him in his place. Mama bear. Love that. Jon and Dany being a bit cheeky, Dany liking the smoked fish. I don't know why I like that, but I do. And the fact that they can be sweet with each other occasionally, even though the Lannisters are lurking around. And of course, the Blessed Island. The next chapter is where we really get to see it. And I really love how this is described. I can just picture these as scenes from the show in my head. Why can I see Emilia Clarke and Kit Harington as young lovers and standing on a ship watching an island approaching? Because I could just picture that. Maybe I'm just a visual thinker, I don't know. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.